fractions. And there's a lot of different strategies that you can use when you're going to be comparing two different fractions. So let's just start off by creating two fractions. Let's say that we want to use 3 out of 4, and maybe want to create or use 3 over 8, okay? And there's some different things that we can use in order to determine whether they are greater than, less than, or equal to, right? We want that either the greater than sign, the less than sign, or equal when we're comparing. The first thing that we might start off with is by looking at size, okay? In this case, we might draw two different rectangles. Again, we want to make sure that our holes that we draw are the same size, okay? It's not going to be helpful if I draw one and one's like this and the other's like this. They're not lined up because it's then really challenging to determine which one is larger, okay? So it's important that we're talking about the same size hole. In this case, make it about the same. And I'm going to divide this top one into 4 parts. And I will shade in 3/4 of them. 1, 2, 3 out of 4. Okay, I can label that on the top, 3 out of 4. And then down here on the bottom, I can do the same thing where I divide this now into 8 parts. Here I've got my 4. And as I keep going down here, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm going to start actually grabbing from the same exact side because I want to make sure that it makes it easier for me when I'm going to compare. And if I'm looking at this here, I can see that as they're on the same same side, that the purple one is larger than the green one. It has more space that has been filled up. So in this case, again, I could go through, and I'd write 3 down here, 3/8. I might say 3/4 is greater than 3/8. So that's certainly one strategy. And I could do that also using a number line. Size could be with shapes. I can do that by placing both on a number line, either on the same number line or on different number lines. I'm going to use the same size number line. Both again are talking about this, but you're talking about relative size. Here we'll use red for 3/4 case. Here I've got this where I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces. 3/4 is here. I'll use my blue for the bottom. Again, this is 0 and 1. I should have labeled that initially. Again, here 0 and 1. I'm gonna use the bottom for this. Here we go. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 parts. I got to divide it again, each one in half. And as I look at this here, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 parts. And here, if I go 3 of them, 1, 2, 3, I got myself at 3/8. And I can see again, as I look at this, that my 3 is here for 3/8, and my 3 over here for 3/4 goes here. And my purple line is clearly larger, so 3/4 would be greater than 3/8. I can continue to do a little bit more with my 3/4 and my 3/8. As I continue down here, 3/4, 3/8. I can start to reason by looking at things like my numerator and my denominator. Okay? Numerator and denominator. And when I do this here, as I'm looking at both of these, I'm going to start to look at what do I know about my fraction. In this case, both of them have the same numerator. They have the same number of parts that they're being discussed, right? Uh, so in this case, when I'm looking at it, I'll use my number line example again, just like I did here, that when I'm looking at this with my same size whole, got my 4 parts here, 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4. I do the same thing down below. What I'm noticing here is that I can look at the size of each of these pieces, and I should know at this point that because of that, the size, the larger the number on the bottom, this number here being 8, means that these pieces here, my 1/8, are significantly smaller than my quarters. So that larger that number is going to make for smaller pieces. It's like it's been cut into more pieces. So here in this case, I know that if I'm looking at it, again, I can look at this here, my 3/8, come back up here, my 3/4, and find that I have 3 pieces. They both have 3 pieces. but the pieces for my quarters are much larger, meaning in this case, that it's actually going to take two of these eighths in order to equal even just one of my quarters, right? You can see that right here as I line them up. Really, really helpful when you have them lined together. The last thing you can start to do, and this can be very helpful if you're looking at your fractions and can tell you about what you know about them, is when I'm looking at my two fractions here, I can start to think about their relation to half and whole. In this case, I might start by looking at them and going, are any of these greater than half compared to the others? Well, I already know that 3/4 is over 1/2 because 1/2 is 2/4. And over here, to be equal to 1/2, 1/2 would be equal to 4/8. I need four of those eighths pieces. So I know that this is smaller than half. So I'll label that here, smaller than half. And I know that this is larger or greater than 1/2. And just by looking at that, I can tell already that this one here has to be larger than my 3/8. My 3/8 is less than 3/4. So I can reason relating to related facts. Reason with related fractions or facts. Okay. So as you're going today, when you're looking at your pairs of fractions, I want you to be thinking about which one's greater and which one is lesser, and how do you know? Try planting or plotting some on a number line. Try using what you know about the numerator or denominator to explain how you know one is greater or less than or equal to.